Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. I said, okay, so this is the first episode. We had one recorded before, but it was lost to the sands of time. Of Ghouls, Guts, and Gloves, a video podcast. People say video podcast, I guess. Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. If you couldn't guess by the title, it's a horror video podcast, horror culture, all the stuff that's related to
Before I knew you had a title, I was going to say haha horror.
God damn it. No. It's like Joker's ha hacienda. Yeah, that was in the Silver Age.
Yeah.
Silver Age. They should have kept that. But anyway, one of the main features of this is going to be, of course, movie reviews, and doesn't really apply to this movie as much as it will the movie we're about to talk about, movies in the future. But one thing I wanted to focus on is kind of a tribute to the movie watching experience, is something that I've seen multiple times in the past, and that he has not seen. We'll probably find something we can do the other way around. Because, you know, like when you watch a movie for the first time, it's really exciting because you're watching the events unfold for the first time. If you watch a movie multiple times, you catch more of the nuances, you get a feeling for the director's style more. Both are very powerful experiences. So I noticed that a lot of times when there's dual reviews going on, you know, it's like, sure, Cisco and Eva, why not? It's either people watching it for the first time, or people that have both seen it multiple times, and you don't get a lot of that variety of experience. So this is, you know, I'd say a tribute to the movie watching experience. So the first one we're going to review, it was a documentary, but it definitely deals with something that's very important to horror. It's a serial killer culture. I think this is the first, there's definitely, you know, a ton of documentaries about serial killers and whatnot out there, but I think this is the first one I know of that deals just with the people that collect and correspond with notorious serial killers.
It doesn't focus on the killers at all, really.
Right. Like they're a feature role. Mostly just at this point, it's mostly just collecting now because you know, most of the serial killers involved, most of the major, you know, infamous serial killers are dead from execution or just.
We haven't really had like a celebrity killer.
Yeah.
In like the last 10, 20 years.
The last I can remember was the DC Sniper, the DC Snipers technically. Yeah, but there was a Unabomber a bit before that, but
because Jeffrey Dahmer is the most recent one I remember.
Was it the Unabomber after? I think the Unabomber was after Dahmer.
I thought he was 80s.
Was it Unabomber?
Because Dahmer was like early mid-90s, right?
Yeah. He was 90s because I remember that Dr. Dre song, the Dr. Dre Ice Cube song, Natural Born Killers, which is one of the most 90s songs. Have you heard this song? Mm-hmm. Oh, he has one line that I'm forgetting the exact phrasing, but it's super fucking 90s. He says, I'm a pull motherfucking Jeffrey Dahmer. Got a red light on your head like your neighbor Sarah Connor. And I'm suicidal like Nirvana. Like, wow, all the 90s stuff in one. All the 90s shits. Nice. Terminator.
90s
Jeffrey
killer,
Dahmer.
90s movie, 90s music.
Right.
Wow.
In current, it was probably very recently.
I thought you were going to say, like, 90s in style and, like, way he executes it. But, like, no, literally 90s in, like, wow, that really dates the lyric.
Right. And it was also just a very 90s in style. It's a great song.
Yeah.
Ice Cube. No longer has attitude.
Ice Cube?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's the one that's in, like, Law and Order and stuff now, right?
Yeah.
And Tank Girl.
He's an N without A.
Tank.
No more attitude.
Wait, I thought that was. Wait, no. Ice-T is in Law and Order and all that.
Yeah.
Both of the Ices.
No, Ice-T. At least Ice-T is in Law. He's in Law and Order. He plays a cop. He plays a cop in a super gritty show.
Yeah.
Ice Cube's
but Ice-T was in Tank Girl, where he dressed up as a kangaroo.
Anyway, no, Ice Cube is in kids movies.
I'd say they both have lost their edge. But
I would say Ice Cube lost
all
his
of the
edge.
Ices. Cube, T, Vanilla.
He lost his edge.
Yeah.
He went from Ninja Turtles to reality TV.
Yeah, pretty much. Ninja Turtles was a lot edgier than reality TV.
Yeah, reality TV isn't even. Oh fuck, this is gonna be a problem.
Probably, unless you change it.
No, is that okay? Oh, well, okay.
It's still recording, but you're not going to see anything.
Probably not.
Go to the Apple.
The Apple.
And then edit this out. No, go to the Apple and then...
Citizen preferences?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll edit this out, yes. This will be edited. Energy.
No. Yeah, actually.
Computer sleep. Never! Display sleep. Never!
There you go. All right.
Sorry about the interruption. I forgot that computer screens turn black sometimes. Anyway, so yeah, serial killer culture. The first movie I think relating to just the people that collect memorabilia was the main focus of it. There was also a focus on artists, musicians, and just visual artists who use serial killers in their art as inspiration for it. Did you notice that the other guy in the world famous Crawl Space Brothers band had a Nod Their Tongue shirt?
I did not notice that.
He did.
Wait, which it was?
That was the folk band.
That's right.
The folk country band.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the metal band. No, not the metal band. They didn't have a Nod Their Tongue shirt.
It's kind of funny. Serial killers really worked their way into all genres of music.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're like part of the shared experience.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be, have something.
Well, also, I mean, serial killer kind of has its root in country music too. Like, it's always been about outlaws and killing people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So yeah, what would you say? What was your first impression of the movie?
I thought it was interesting that they all had to defend their hobby and what they were doing, but they didn't try. They defended what they were doing, but like they also acknowledged that like it's indefensible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like Rich Helen said, like, well, with one line, like every every retarded horror has a purpose.
I think it's like that whole thing about like you can still enjoy something problematic as long as you enjoy that, or as long as you acknowledge that it's problematic,
right? Or at least at some point they were saying that like, yeah, a lot of people this isn't for them, and I can't blame them. Or like,
yeah, that's another thing too. Like, it's understandable that a lot of people are going to be horrified by it or like triggered or like something. But it's like, but at the same time, this is also something you have to seek out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
So like, I mean, it should be there for the people who want it, but like, it's under like if you don't be like, oh, you're a pussy for not.
Right.
Like,
yeah, it was pause for edit here. What are we gonna say next? Let's think.
I want to do a compilation after a few episodes.
What
do I say next? What do I say next?
I'm just like, So one thing that I know that sparked your interest was the Hart Fisher one. The Hart Fisher parts were because he's talking about underground comics and how the Dharma one got particularly a certain amount of media interest.
Well, also because, I don't know, I thought his stuff was really interesting because he's one of the few people that's really been in the media spotlight for serial killer memorabilia that wasn't actually profiting off the actual crimes where people were, like, selling, wood chips from Ed Gein's house. Or
right.
Actually profiting, like, from the deaths, whereas Hart Fisher was like, this is something that's in the public zeitgeist.
Right.
I'm going to tell this story. He's being treated as a celebrity. I want to show him as I'm going to make a horror thing out of it because he's a monster.
Right.
And then he just sort of got raked over the coals for it, more so than it seems like than the people who are like auctioning off.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
totally. Yeah.
And it's funny because like essentially like what he's doing is actually even less harmful. I feel like than what he pointed out was like all the stuff on the talk shows.
Oh, totally.
Because they do it with this like faux sympathy kind of thing, but they're still like putting the microphone in someone's face. Like, how do you feel that like so and so just ate your son?
Right.
And it's like just as exploitative, but like Fisher's actually using it as like a means of expression and not a way to like get ratings and stuff.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting.
Right. Kind of related to both the things you said, as the way it got started was some investigative journalists Scare quotes. You see, that's the great thing about videos. You can see my scare quotes.
Yeah.
In case you weren't clear with my tone of voice, I was being dismissive of the term. Not the term in general, but the term that this person should be described as that. Went up to one of the family members of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims and said, "Look at this! Aren't you outraged by this? That people are exploiting, you and your family? Like, you're the one shoving a You're shoving. I mean, at least he's just writing about
Stop
it." Right, you're like, well, you're shoving a camera in my face. I'm on the way to a trial to, see what's going to happen to the person who killed my, brother, or,
Well,
whatever.
also, like, especially with things like using it as a way, like using it as the basis to express something, like, the albums or the books or the comics or the paintings are inspired by, like, it's a different way of expressing, like, feelings about what happened, or even, like, telling a story in a different way, like.
Right.
Like the My Friend Dahmer graphic novel, not by Hart Fisher, but by Durf Backdurf. That's a story about what Dahmer was like in high school, what it was like knowing growing up. I don't feel like that story would have come across as well if it was just like a novel or a book.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need that like visual thing to sort of like, A, tell the story, and B, like it really, like the visuals like really help set the mood and stuff, and like having it in comic book form, I don't know, it puts it in a different context. Like it feels less true crimey, I guess.
Right. Yeah, yeah. They talked a lot about like different. What I liked about the is they had a bunch of people from different media. Like they had even like the artists they had was I forget his name. The guy that was doing the work at Hyena Gallery. His stuff was much more impressionistic and like had a series inspired by the Manson crimes. But like it was like, oh yeah, this ain't like this is the Virgin Mary. She represents Sharon Tate, and like the demons circling around her that represent the Manson family. While Joel Coleman was much more like he was still like very impressionistic in his way, but it was much more straightforward. The is much more of a portrait. Like, one criticism I am going to have, just because I hate nu metal, is that it included that nu metal band. That
Which one?
The one that like had the song, like one song called Albert Fish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
they're the Swedish band, right?
Yeah, some Swedish nu metal band. They're like, well, maybe we'll write another song about serial killer sometime. Like, okay, you wrote one song, yeah, that's
like including Slipknot, a documentary about horror, because they had a music video based on The Shining.
Or Modern Have a Mudvayne, they had a song called Nothing. They had a song about Ed Gein, but they called it Nothing to Gain.
Oh yeah.
Like, come on, get your shit together. Learn how to say his name. You're gonna make puns. Bullshit.
Yeah, Mudvayne were even worse than Slipknot.
It's
not that Slipknot's good, but
it's shitty apples and shitty oranges. Like both of them are rotten. They're super soft. There's worms all over them. No one wants to eat them.
Don't compliment them with worms and maggots. These are cool.
Worms and maggots are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hey, maggots. Yeah. Slipknot fans are called maggots. And then Corey Taylor or whatever the fuck his name, Taylor. Taylor.
Yeah.
Got mad at Fred Durst for insulting his fans.
Yeah.
Like, you call them maggots, you brute, and you make music for them that sucks. So anyway,
yeah. One of the cool things about the documentary was that they kind of went into the whole thing about like part of what makes serial killers like so important to culture is like how it informs horror.
Right. Well, I guess like I think it was the first guy that was featured was saying that he pretty much used all of the profits he's made from auctioning off all this stuff to buy movie posters. Some of you might know, watching this, like in the olden days, you could be tried as a werewolf. Like people, at least I know, definitely in Europe, have been tried as werewolves. And as you were saying a little bit before, it makes sense. Like if you have like a schizophrenic break and you not saying all schizophrenic people are dangerous, but if you do become dangerous, you'll forget what you did. Like, what did I do before? Oh, I was a werewolf the night before.
Well, yeah, because like it seems like the classic werewolf story is like an allegory for like having psychotic episodes,
right?
Like somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer, like the killers who actually, the few that like where it's clear they actually do have remorse after their horrible crimes,
right?
they have this like lapse of sanity or reason or whatever, and then also if they have psychopathic tendencies and stuff already. But then when they come to, or when they realize what they've done, they're like, oh God, what have I done? Like, I don't remember that. How could I have done that? And so then, like, the whole werewolf thing, like, you have this lapse of thing, you know, you can't control it, and then when you come to, you're like, oh shit, what did I do?
Right. Yeah, so, you know, they're the Wolfman, you know, one of the classic Universal monsters, the basis of, you know, horror cinema, one of the first pieces of horror cinema. Vampires, yeah, Dracula inspired. Like, people used to legitimately believe that people were vampires. Vlad the Impaler, of course, you know, another true crime-ish one. He's a character, true crime, war crimes. He was the inspiration for Bela Lugosi's Dracula, or the Dracula died with the book Dracula, which Bela Lugosi later played. And in a weird way, it's kind of come full circle, because now a lot of more modern horror movies take inspiration from real life events. You know, like a few of them are like more strictly based on the cases. You know, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer is one. Deranged is another one. There's a lot of really bad ones out there too.
I mean, just Ed Gein alone. You know, like Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs, like. He alone has inspired, like, legions of...
Yeah, like I said, like, I was going to say, when you go into inspiration, there's a ton. Like, if the Silence of the Lambs itself, which is more of a thriller, but, you know, funny little details here. Buffalo Bill, you know, the skin suit was inspired by Ed Gein. The way he apprehended his victims by pretending he had his arm in his sling, and to get them into the car by help, that was one of Ted Bundy's MOs. The pit in his the pit in the house where he keep women, that was taken from Gary Heindich. So you have like all this stuff that's culminated into one character, and like a lot of other movies and now horror TV shows have done that. Like American Horror Story season 3 features the Axeman of New Orleans as a character, although they make him involved in some witchcraft stuff, which didn't actually happen, I don't think, with him. Also, he was never caught, so no one knows his story. And then
well, it's also kind of interesting too, because like I feel like old horror movies used to take like they would take these horrible things that happen and then make them supernatural, because of religion being so big back then. Like, it was using like these actions of people to represent, like, you know, evil demons and spirits, like the evil of humanity. Whereas now, it's more about taking like these evil things, but like what makes them so much more terrifying is that they're based in reality.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Like yeah, like not even just like old horror movies, but like just like where those horror movies were based from. And this is probably one of the bases of where, you know, why true crime becomes such a ratings getter, and, you know, such a piece of, you know, such a social phenomenon. Is they're both trying to wonder how somebody would do this. The answer back then was, somebody didn't do this. They're not a human. They're a werewolf. They're a vampire. They're, you know, whatever they might be. And then it's like, okay, we're understanding that these are people, but like, how could somebody commit these, you know, monstrous deeds? I don't think.
Well, it's also interesting now too, because there's more like sympathy's not the right word, but we're more and more understanding that, like, when it's not for something like personal gain or like self-defense, like someone who does things like that, like, they're not in their right mind. Like, they're clearly ill. Like, there's something wrong with them. Like, you can't reason with someone.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah. Like,
and so, like, as much as it's not like, it's still like their fault, but at the same time, it's like someone like that is ill. Like, they're not doing it just to be evil. Like, they
right.
Like, who is it? Something Whitman.
Charles Whitman.
Charles Whitman. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because when he, you know, took out all those people in the clock tower.
Yeah, brain tumor.
Yeah, he even left a note. He said, you know, something's not right. Like, after I die, please do an autopsy. And then that's just like on Pete Holmes' podcast, he mentioned something about like this guy who, you know, went his whole life normal, but then like later in life he started getting pedophilic urges, and so he's like, this is not normal. This is horrible. And so he went in to go get checked out or something. And when they did a CAT scan, they found a tumor on the part of his brain that was like affecting, you know, like reason, morality, judgment, and all that stuff. And then they removed it, and he was fine. The urges went away completely. He started feeling them again, and the tumor had come back.
Fucking I didn't hear about that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so like when you hear about stuff like that, it's like how. It's like how the whole like line of responsibility thing. It's like weird. Like where do you draw the line?
It is weird because then like there's the insanity plea, which
but then there's also Kumail Nanjiani, his wife. She used to work with like troubled youth and like really messed up people, and she said just because you understand why somebody does something or how they do it doesn't mean you excuse it or accept it.
Excuse it or accept it.
Yeah.
It's one of Sarah's colleagues like focuses a lot on this, and then this is where the insanity defense comes in to a huge degree. It's how I think pretty much everybody's tried to use an insanity defense, and people misunderstand that it's insanity defense because when conversational terms, and someone who's insane is like obviously like someone like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy or Gacy is obviously insane, but like in a legal sense, they were all very sane because they knew what they were doing. They knew what they're doing was wrong, and they took steps to hide it. Like that's one. What was I gonna say? Oh, they like Dahmer. Although people look at a case like that. And they say, clearly he's insane. A cannibal necrophile, like drilling holes in someone's head. Like obviously this is like the activity of an insane person, but the way he carried out his crimes was extremely sophisticated. He I don't know if it's ever confirmed that he did this on purpose or not, or if he just had a type, but he did focus. He looked at he focused on people that wouldn't cause as much commotion if they went missing. Runaway. Young runaways. Marginalized people. He wasn't even minorities. I'm not sure if that. I don't think it was ever confirmed or not. If that was just his type because it was a sexual thing, or if he intentionally went after that. But yeah, he had a motif. He had like the certain pills he put in a drink, so he knew that he'd be able to get them home in time, so it wouldn't be as suspicious. He brought them home, and he had cameras and all this stuff. He'd made up all these excuses as to why his apartment would stink like rotten flesh. The fridge. At one point he said "Oh yeah, my freezer was broken. I'm sorry, it must be some spoiled meat." And so, that I think creeps. That's one of the creepiest things to most people. And for me, that's like one of the hardest things to comprehend is that this was, you can't say it's a normal functioning brain because obviously they're doing these horrific acts, and how could a normal person do this? But at the same time, they're being methodical about it. They're being methodical. They're thinking this out. Most people can't kill one person and get away with it.
Yeah, it's not like he lost control completely of what he was doing. Temporarily, and then came to and was like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" He definitely expressed remorse once he was caught. It seemed genuine, but you gotta also have to wonder how much longer would he have gone on doing it without feeling without feeling remorse.
Yeah, a lot of I was watching this documentary where it was he's being interviewed with his dad, and there's this one part. Have you ever seen the Dahmer movie?
Yes.
Yeah. The scene where he has a kid's skull in the box? That's real. Wow. His dad almost found it, and then he was able to say, "Oh no, we'll look at this tomorrow." And he put porn in there because his dad thought, it was his dirty magazine stash.
Yeah.
And he, I guess, got pornography, put it in there, and hid the skull. Yeah. So he had these crazy, you hear all these stories about these close calls and how people got away. It's these are people that you can't imagine them having a functioning brain, but obviously...
That was one of the interesting things about My Friend Dahmer, the graphic novel, was that in so many of the Dahmer stories and interviews and people that knew him, there's all this about, there were never any signs, we never knew, or whatever. Whereas somebody who was in school with him was like, holy shit, there were so many signs. This is why he got away with it, because none of you were paying attention.
Right.
Especially because he was talking about, this was the days before Don't Say No and all the anti-drug stuff. He's showing up in class every day drunk off his ass, before first period.
When he would drink it out of he would drink it out of a Dixie cup or something.
they would give him like 6-packs and stuff, and like
he would
like hard liquor.
Yeah, he'd drink like hard. Yeah, he'd drink hard liquor.
Yeah,
I remember one of his classmates said, like, "What are you doing?" He'd say, "I'm taking my medicine."
Yeah, and he would like fake epileptic seizures and like fake cerebral palsy and just like do all of this like stuff that was like clearly like, hey, something's going on with me, and like like nowadays like he would have been like medicated in a heartbeat,
right?
And that's also another thing he addresses. He says he thinks Dahmer could have been saved. He doesn't think he would have been able to live a normal, happy life.
Right.
He would have had to be heavily medicated, but he probably would not have ended up a serial killer if they had noticed that stuff.
Yeah, like in the interview with his dad, he said, the interviewer said, like, what would happen if your dad opened that box? And he said, well, the jig would have been up. Like that's like the way he described it as a game or this lie that he was telling people. Well, it's what? So you're pretending that you're a normal human. Anyway, back. Also, you should if you're what? I said never. I said do not go to sleep. I'm just gonna keep doing this every once in a while.
Once we do a few episodes, that'll be where we put in the ads.
Yeah, what do you put in the ads?
A commercial and then
song break.
Never again.
Never again.
Virgin Airways.
Speaking of monsters. Anyway, Virgin Airways.
Virgins are monsters?
Yes. No, Virgin Airways.
Oh, yeah.
Or Delta. All the airlines. Horrible.
Southwest. Sizest motherfuckers.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, if you're watching this, you should, if you haven't watched it already, check out this documentary, The Dahmer Files. Really interesting because it most focuses on two people. It's like unlike other general biography type documentaries where they go over the whole story. It's like not Dahmer 101, Intro to Dahmer. It's like Advanced Dahmer. They have the guy that was the first person to interview him after he's booked, and
well, that's another interesting thing about serial killer culture. Now that you mention it, you said that it's not Dahmer 101. There's the serial killer culture where like you have your friends in high school, they're into metal, and they're like, oh, they know all the killers, they know all their crimes. But then there's like this other like this subculture of the subculture that like they know all of the other testimony, they know like all the other weird facts in the life.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because like it almost gives you two completely different pictures of the killer. And so like there's the people who are interested in just like the grisly crimes, and then there's like the other culture that's interested in like what went into creating this person.
Right. Yeah, it's like any other interest out there. It's like there's people who are interested to a degree of like I'm really into punk. I really like the Ramones, the Dead Kennedys, the Sex Pistols. I think the Exploited would be probably the next level of.
Well, I mean, like to them, punk is like Liberty Spikes and a jacket and all that.
Not just that stuff. It's like the intro bands. The bands that most people who are into punk they get started with the Sex Pistols, Ramones, and then you go a bit further to like Exploited, Subhumans. Not just putting them on the same level of awareness. If anyone gets offended, big Subhumans fans out there. Subhumans, maybe the Addicts, and then you go to like a little bit deeper, and maybe I don't know what would be the next level. The
LA guys who know everything about every 7-inch Danger House release and are like fluent.
Yeah, okay, you do
you also have to pick up a second language.
Right, yeah, then you go, then you go to the next one, then you get to like, I know every LA band that's ever released a 7-inch. I think I related to both of these. One of my favorite punk facts is that two very good and very underrecorded LA punk bands, the Hollywood Squares and the Child Molesters, both recorded songs called "I'm the Hillside Strangler."
Didn't the Child Molesters have a song about Gacy too?
No, maybe you got the Mentally Ill.
Yeah, I'm thinking about.
Yeah, they did have a song about Brenda Spencer though.
Okay.
And so did the Boomtown Rats. And a lot of people think that Boomtown Rats song is just about not liking Mondays. But no, it's about shooting children. Because you don't like Mondays. And
who actually did a great serial killer song was Throbbing Gristle.
Which one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah. Well, there was
The one
like
about the Moors murders.
yeah. Well, since you know they were British, they were totally the Moors murders like the most notorious.
They were
killer.
really into the Moors murders for a while because like they had like the Myra Hindley fan club and like they all posed as her and took pictures with Monty Kazaza and stuff.
I actually saw this this Photoshop with the Brady Bunch, and it was Ian Brady's face posted onto all the
nice.
When it was posted on the blonde girls, it kind of looked like Genesis. So she probably Genesis. I'm not sure what Genesis pronouns are, but Genesis would probably be into that fact if Genesis knew about that. But no, the Dahmer files. Yeah. So like yeah, you said like there's like any interest. There's levels of interest into it. And I think Star Wars is a great example of that. Anyway, the extended universe.
Oh yeah.
Dahmer files. It focuses on one of the guy that was the first person who arraigned him was very interacted with Dahmer a lot during the trial. Actually, his famous blue shirt that appeared on his cover of People magazine, front page cover story, back to the exploitation and whatnot.
He dressed kind of like Jerry Seinfeld now that I think about it. Dahmer.
His that was a shirt that he lent from his son. And his son's like, nah, he can keep it. I don't want it back. He could probably make a ton of money off that now.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, what's interesting now is, but one fact that I found interesting about the serial killer files was that Gacy didn't really sell. He sold his paintings for very cheap, and that was. And now, like I see, like the High Ho series go for like $2,000, like over $2,000 for one painting. But of course, dying always makes someone's work more valuable. No, and then the other person that was involved in this, the Dahmer files, was his neighbor, who lived, in the Oxford apartments right by him, and she was telling the story about like, my friend Dahmer, and she was talking about how, well, two things that she said that stood out the most to me, or I guess there's three things, was after the trial, like during the trial, people would protest outside of her building, like, we didn't do anything, no, he's gone, he's not here anymore, you're wasting your time. If you really want to get to the people responsible, talk to the Milwaukee police, who didn't notice the fact that there was a naked underage boy with blood coming out of his ass, and said, "Oh, we would trust naked male torturous to sober boyfriend."
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Yeah, you heard that? Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, this is just what gay people do, right?
Right. Then people would want to come to our apartment and like they want to hold the glass that he drank out of. Like, oh, he sat right here on this couch, and they'd sit down and her other neighbors. I'm not sure if she said this. She was doing it. Like, you want to drink from the glass? He drank from, sit on the couch, like walk by the hallways. He walked in, and then she, when she first heard about it, she felt this really deep sense of betrayal from him, and she was in like, well, one thing she said, like, I've ate at your place. I don't know that I haven't eaten human meat. Right, like, yeah, you've made me a sandwich. I don't know that I haven't.
That's something you gotta live with the rest of your life.
It's like the episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Like,
it's raccoon meat!
I don't know what form you'd be filling out, but I just imagine there's some form like, have you ever eaten, like, human meat or something?
What form?
You check yes and no.
Mate? Unsure?
Which one should I mark?
Please specify.
Yeah.
And then when she was in jail for I think it was some I think she said it was some drug charge or something like that. She was in jail when Dahmer was it was revealed that Dahmer was killed, and everyone was cheering, and she started crying because she, in a weird way, she obviously know what she did, like she lost a friend, like although he wasn't featured in the mock documentary, he should have, but Merle Allen was talking about how he legitimately misses his friend Danny Rolling, and then he talked about how like a lot of these people who he would talk to and like have a friendship with are dead because you get executed or prisons or just.
That's kind of an interesting thing though, because I imagine Merle Allen. I mean, the reason he is friends with and knows these people is because that they're famous killers, right?
Right.
Whereas other people who like when someone horrific dies and they're sad and it's because they missed their friend or their family member, they knew them before they were a killer. They have a relationship already, and so it's easier to like sort of sympathize with. Yes, that person was horrible, but to you, this is
right.
Whereas with Merle Allen, I don't doubt that they were friends, but it's like your reason for becoming friends isn't because he was a horrific person.
Yeah.
So that's weird or interesting, at least.
Yeah.
That whole duality of
the whole duality experience.
Yeah.
But it's back to the straight content of serial killer files. Serial killer culture, not Dahmer files. It was paced out very well. I think they had a good amount of people interviewed, a good amount of different experiences. It's good to get the variety of viewpoints. I personally liked it because it involved people I was into. Like I love Joel Coleman, of course. Royal Cross Bass Brother Macabre, one of my favorite bands. Don't like that one new metal band. I'm just gonna say that because I don't like new metal.
Nobody does.
There's that new metal revival, which means that there's old school new metal.
There's also the bands that were like punk bands, but like they kind of influenced new metal on accident, like Helmet.
Yeah.
And Quicksand.
Biohazard to some degree.
Yeah, how shitty would that be to be like one of those, like an awesome DIY punk band like Quicksand or like a noise rock band like Helmet, and then you accidentally influence Slipknot. You're like, God damn it.
I can't feel sympathy for Mike Patton though.
Yeah, or I was gonna say like Mike Patton, like at least
he's kind of a douche anyway.
At the very least, Mr. Bungle, because Mr. Bungle is a pretty creative band, and like it'd be one thing if they cited Faith No More as the influence, but they all cite Mr. Bungle.
That is it's probably just because Ozfest has become such a new metal shit show, but they always say like, "Oh, I'm really into Black Sabbath." Like, really? What album have you listened to?
Yeah, they like Black Sabbath.
They were like Black Sabbath. Yeah, they started off as kind of like a bluesy metal band because they're a blues cover band. But then,
they're a bluesy band, and I bet you don't like black people.
Yeah,
because it's Ozfest.
Yeah, that's like Ozfest is like at least in Northern California the only place I've seen Hammerskins at a show. And it's like, all this stuff is rap metal. What are you doing here? It seems weird. I don't know. I don't get it. Well, then at the end...
Hatebreed plays there.
Right. Yeah. Hatebreed does play there.
Doesn't Hatebreed have like a huge like neo-Nazi fan base?
Oh, huge.
Like not on purpose.
They're called Hatebreed.
Yeah.
That's actually more understandable than like TSOL or the Dickies or the Addicts. Yeah, because they're called Hatebreed. Yeah, anyway.
I don't think Hatebreed's racist, but they sound very racist.
Yeah, and they have, like, their songs are just about, like, vengeance and anger and all this tough guy shit. So, like, it can definitely be transferred, into, neo-Nazism. Even if it's not about that. So, yeah, Serial Killer Files. I definitely really enjoyed Joe Coleman's influence on that. It's interesting because the same person who did this also did a documentary just strictly about Albert Fish, and most of it was just Joe Coleman talking about Albert Fish. Like, I imagine if you don't know who Joe Coleman is, you would hate that. Like, who's this guy talking all the time? Like, well, you see, Albert Fish, like, he was a Christian, like, he was a Catholic, and as like, being raised Catholic, I understand that pain is good, like, this suffering, focus on the suffering of Jesus Christ. Then Albert Fish was a shaman in the same way, like, he would go into the trance of masochism and sadism, and then, like, and with the letter he wrote to, Dennis Bud, I think his name was, Grace Bud's father, I think his name was, Dennis Bud, spacing on the detail right now. He said, it's okay because she died a virgin, which is the christening that suffering is good, but sex is bad. Like, I just want to hear about her. But anyway, definitely check out, definitely check out, we don't have a rating system, I just realized. Do you want to do 10 stars or 5 stars?
10.
10? Yeah. Okay, so Serial Killer Files,
if it was 5, we would just do decimal points anyway.
That's true. That's just math. Let's not do 10 points. I would say it's a 4.5. Yeah. No, I definitely rated a 9. It has a good run time. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Good amount of
serial killer culture.
Yeah, serial killer culture. Good runtime, doesn't overstay its welcome. Gets to the point, and a lot of different variety of experiences, and just some really interesting people talking about this subsect of this very American, since also
They called it Americana, right?
yeah,
That was actually a very appropriate term.
yeah, it is Americana because especially with Ed Gein, because he's very rural and back west.
And also like when you think about it, it really is sort of like a luxury culture to get into. Like you can only really imagine a culture like this here in England and like maybe a couple European countries. You imagine in a country like, a country where death is a lot more of an immediate problem. You probably don't get into the mass murderers and stuff like that.
Yeah. Unless you're in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
But what are they? Does Bulgaria live in? I don't know. I don't know what they're. I don't know where they live.
Who, Bulgaria?
Yeah.
They're from Brazil, I think.
Are they from Brazil?
They're from like one of the actual South American countries.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they're very secretive about their identity, and
I think it's Brazil.
Anyway, but yeah, definitely check that out, and I'd give that 9 stars. I'd give it 9 stars. 1 star taken off for the new metal band.
Yeah.
And what would you say?
I'd give it about 8.
8?
Because it was good if you're into that as far as like an introduction or like it's more of like an expansion pack
right
kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, like I don't know how good it would be for those like uninitiated. Like it's
right.
You have to have,
yeah.
It's something you have to be into going into it already.
Right. Otherwise, if you're if you're already familiar with like Gacy's paintings and stuff like that, and that whole like general idea.
Because like there's like other documentaries, like something like Rocky Erickson or the Daniel Johnson documentary. It's good for people who are like diehard because you still get like all the facts, but it's also a good starting point introduction. So it's viewable and entertaining to like a non-connoisseur.
Right. So yeah, okay. So I don't know what song I'm going to put here, but I'm going to put some horror-related song. I'll put it in the description, and we're going to cut, and then we're going to talk about Martyrs. Put a picture here. YouTube, iMovie's really good with editing. I like it.
Yeah, it's really easy to edit.
Yeah, pretty good. And we're back with whatever song that was. I hope you enjoyed it. It was probably "Rocket from the Crypts."
We should just pretend to be talking and then have the song playing over that.
No. I'm just gonna say it's "Rocket from the Crypt." I Drink Blood because that's one of my favorite Halloweeny songs. You ever heard that song?
I've never heard Rocket from the Crypt because I try to stay away from punk bands with horns.
This one doesn't have horns.
Oh, okay.
It's one of their surfier songs.
Okay.
As I'd say. Anyway, so to lighten up the tone, we're going to talk about Martyrs, an
unrelentingly bleak and dark movie.
To
lighten up the tone.
To lighten up the tone. So Martyrs is. I first saw Martyrs. I think I've seen it about. I remember it was one of those days where I saw the movie for the first time in the morning, and I just kept rewatching it to try to keep everything trying to capture everything by the movie. It's part of the new French extremity move. I guess kind of a movement. There's like not that many movies associated with it now, but it's definitely something that certain filmmakers are taking to heart. It's Well, it's interesting because I guess in a way, you could kind of call it an exploitation film.
I think you described because I guess it's new French extremity, but I feel like it applies to a lot of European horror movies,
right?
Where the idea is like art house concepts with exploitation gore,
right? Yeah, it's art house concepts, exploitation gore. A lot of like a majority of European. Well, first of all, the majority of European horror movies are Italian. With notable influence, so some German, some French filmmakers, mostly Italian, and then also a lot of American filmmakers. And a lot of times, actually just today I was seeing someone was describing this as torture porn, and I think that term is stupid because not that what I don't like about it is it's a term that was describing a new phenomenon that already existed and had a term to
Mm-hmm.
describe it. It's kind of in a way, I guess the best analogy I could do is
I feel like torture porn is used to describe like more mainstream exploitation, I guess.
yeah, that's what it's like. It's like Saw movies, Saw, Hostel, and that's pretty much it for mainstream exploitation and all the
Well, yeah, because like before exploitation movies, they were, you had to go like to the beardy guy at the video store
Right,
and like,
right, right.
ask for recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get Saw and Hustle, which are kind of the same thing, less groundbreaking, but like marketed for like mainstream audiences.
Right,
And so, like,
right.
Someone who goes like used to go and get like exploitation films, like they were sort of like a connoisseur. You were really into the artwork or like the concepts and all that stuff. Whereas people who go to see Saw, I feel like torture porn is actually a little more apt because you're going there just to get your rocks off watching like torture and gore and blood and stuff. Like much like porn, like there's erotica and like like movies that are sexy and stuff, and then there's like you watch porn just to like get your rocks off with sex.
Yeah, but a lot of the old exploitation movies are they're to certain degrees like there's a certain amount of philosophy or stuff behind them, but at least as much as the Saw films, I think it's actually Saw 6 that tried so hard to be socially relevant by bringing in the healthcare thing and like I agreed with what the point the movie was trying to make, but it was so I think it was in this way it was an exploitation movie because the message was so ham-fisted. Like spoilers for anyone who cares.
Everyone does.
Not everyone, but the central victim is this guy who was a healthcare claims adjuster, and John, who has a brain tumor as part of the series. He went to them, and he was denied coverage because of pre-existing conditions, and he has to make these choices of who to kill. Actually, no, I don't think John was involved in this. This was I don't care about the fucking storyline. But anyway, this person was like forced to make decisions of who lives and who dies. Like, is it this young, healthy person who, there was a scene like, or is it you get to choose who gets hung or hanged, which is correct only when you're hanging somebody, which is the weirdest grammar rule I know of. That there's different grammar for something being hung, and that if you're lynching somebody, that's a specific thing. That's fucking weird to me. Yeah, it's like, oh, you're going to kill this young, healthy man who...
I feel like that's kind of macabre that somebody actually had to make that rule. Like, come on now, be specific.
Right! Yeah, like, come on, be specific. Yeah, someone, like, made that. Anyway, like, are you going to kill this young, healthy man? Or this who has no family or friends? Are you going to kill this old, sweet grandma who has maybe 5 years to live? But anyway, and it, it did what, it did it achieved what a lot of the exploitation films, the old exploitation did.
It achieved what it set out to do.
Yeah, it did what it set out to do. So yeah, it's thing like to me, torture porn is kind of like when somebody says like when they describe death metal as screaming music.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Like it's a term that's kind of although I guess it'd be like if someone called death metal, I don't know. Maybe because it's certain subsect. The screaming music is described as everything from like, punk rock to screamo to whatever. But I don't know. I guess like if only death metal was called screaming music, or like I think Eugene Merman was talking about this how Will.i.am or whatever was describing something as batonable.
Is what?
Batonable.
Batonable?
Yeah, like you have a baton, you pass it to somebody. That means like. Viral is already a word. Like, basically, he took the term of viral and described it as batonable and tried to make it a thing. Or life hacks. Yeah, like, those are tips, and most of them aren't even that good.
Yeah.
So, anyway, a lot of them, like... Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS, it was just, or the Wicked Warden, or... Oh wait, that's Harem Gives the Oral Sheep. This is the Wicked Warden. I apologize for getting them out of order. They have, most of their goal is to, set out what they're going to do. Most of the focus is let's make some really extreme death scenes here. Let's folk has to have all these controversial elements to it, and a plot or a point is going to be secondary just to the point maybe the point just is the artistic statement of just having raw brutality on film. It's kind of like in a way almost kind of related to what Warhol was doing with the statement of like minimalism in a way. And when I say that, if I'm not putting down the movies because
well, yeah, there's also something to be said for just being able to like exercise your id.
Right. It's just like film it as like raw brutality on screen.
Like, there's a reason it's that kind of stuff is so popular because, brutal emotions and like just horrible thoughts. Like everyone has them, and so it's not like as important, just as important as it is to acknowledge, like to realize how bad those things are. It's also important to acknowledge that they're there and to give them some form of release. Right,
definitely. Yeah, it's and it relate to serial killer culture. It's a manifestation of the extremes of the human experience, even if it's something very inhuman in a way. Like it is still very grounded in humanity. And yeah, as I was kind of saying before, just the kind of exploitation that's very very cheap to the point. That's some definitely a lot of people see that as a bad thing, and I see that as kind of acknowledgement. You could say like if you're seeing Sun live, you could say like, oh, they're not even playing any riffs. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, they're not even playing riffs. This isn't Yngwie Malmsteen. Or with noise, you can say, oh, he doesn't have a guitar. What's going on here? That's not.
Yeah, it's just noise.
Right. Oh, like why you or like with punk rock scene, it's like, or with punk rock, it's like, oh, that's not how you sing opera.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, that's like, oh, punk rock, this is so basic. Like, yeah, that's the point, and and that's fine, as it is. And then there are some punk bands where the singer actually has a very talented voice, like the Gits or Fear. Leaving actually has a pretty impressive range for what he did. And that's kind of like Martyrs, because the new French Extremity, as you mentioned, the art house thing, it takes, I guess, like the closest analogy I could find was probably, have you seen 120 Days of Sodom?
Sallow?
Yeah.
I've never seen it all the way through, but I've seen like enough of it to work.
I have
seen the whole thing, just not once.
It's it's an art film with a Criterion release. And like as Videodrome has a Criterion release, Antichrist has a Criterion release. They're recognized as art because they have this definitely an artistic point, a high artistic point, and it has
also a style too,
an aesthetic, and a mission and a message. And that's definitely where Martyrs comes in. Actually, it's before on this horror collectors Facebook group. Someone was saying how they just got Martyrs and they're waiting to home to watch it. And this person was saying like, oh, I don't like torture porn. And everyone was saying, and I would agree, is that Martyrs is much more than, even if torture, my new problems with the term torture porn or exploitation aside, Martyrs is much more than that. I
also feel like, because like with torture, the whole torture porn thing, like with Saw, so like a lot of it's just like, ew, gnarly, like that's cool, like it's more gleeful. Like Martyrs is brutal. Like I don't get like with Saw, it's kind of like you're kind of like being a teenager again. Like you get excited when you see like some of the gory scenes. Like with Martyrs, it was hard to watch.
Oh yeah,
it's not super gory. Like there's not blood and guts and stuff. It's mostly just like, like this is painful. This is hard. Like I don't feel good watching this. We're gonna talk about some
spoilers in a bit. To me, one of the hardest scenes to watch was when Anna.
Spoilers in a bit, meaning right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. After this. Well, if you see spoilers in a bit, you're like, I'll wait it out a couple of minutes. Fuck you, deserve to be spoiled.
Yeah. Okay, so hardest scene to watch, or one of them.
Was when when she realizes that, oh no, my my hallucinating friend was right. There actually is this underground
Yeah.
thing. Also, that's just terrifying.
Watching her face when
Oh,
her face when they're showing her like the scrapbook and the photos, and she's realizing, and they're like telling her what it is they do.
uh-huh.
And, and when you can see it dawn on her, like, oh fuck, this is what you're gonna do to me
the entire time.
Well, that, but also,
yeah.
oh fuck, this is what's gonna happen to me now.
Right. Well, I think that's just a very also a very relatable piece of horror is the dawning realization that you didn't listen to somebody when you should have.
Yes.
That's something we've all experienced, and every time we do that to different degrees, we're like, shit, I fucked up. And for her, that fucking up resulted in torture. Is when they found when she was trying to I don't know what she was trying to do, but trying to make the unnamed person that they had captured, and when they take the her I guess mask off, and there's these giant staples being pulled out of her head. Yeah, because it's definitely relatable in that way. Because we've all had something stuck in our body. We've had to pull it out, and pulling it out's worse than getting it in there.
Mm-hmm. Also, relating to the whole thing of like relatable being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Some of the hardest scenes I thought to watch were the feeding scenes where they were force feeding her with a spoon, because like they're not even like really hurting her, but just like hearing the click of that metal spoon on her teeth, like you recognize that sound from when you eat, and then you're recognizing that as like that's prolonging her torture, and just like I don't know, it just like that's really like talented, I guess, to make something like feeding someone
right
as uncomfortable as probably even I felt more uncomfortable watching that than I did when they were like beating her.
Yeah, right.
Because like I've been slapped.
Well, even like most of her torture scenes,
her torture scenes weren't even very graphic.
Right. Like she was just like she was on the bed and the guy was punching her in the face, and the guy, I guess kind of going back to serial killer culture, went back home and he had a family, and he was like, as people say, the punch card villain, where he's just doing it for a paycheck. You never think about where all these all the villains go. Like all the henchmen, like where do they? Well, unless you watch Venture Brothers, and then you know that very well. Or you've actually, I know it's Austin Powers, but I did like that scene in Austin Powers where they had a funeral for a henchman, and they showed the wife.
This is in Austin Powers?
Yeah.
Which one?
2.
I don't remember a funeral for a henchman.
Oh, they show the wife got the notification, and she's like, no, yeah, I was like, oh yeah, that's the aftermath of someone dying.
They did that in Star Wars Episode 1 too, actually, with the pod racers, because when they're all lining up, you see one of the little aliens. He has a wife and children, and they're patting him on the back, getting ready for his race, and then throughout the pod race, as all the racers explode and die, after the race, you see his little wife and kid walk away crying. One of the good Easter eggs in Phantom Menace.
Yeah, good one. But yeah, no, this movie, not that it was this philosophically really heavy. It was exceedingly nihilistic.
Yeah, the whole point of just let go and you won't be afraid anymore.
Right. Yeah, let go, you won't be afraid anymore.
I mean, that's basically nihilism 101.
Right. Or it was definitely a political statement about how as a society people in a way try to ignore the negative side, the negative reality of existence. I'm still even paraphrasing a tiny bit here. Was we all ignore suffering, and yet everyone's a victim.
Well, yeah, but that's Pete Holmes has talked about that at length,
right?
Where it's you have to turn your brain off at a certain point,
right?
Otherwise, there's just no way you could function,
right?
Living in the first world, it's kind of as much as we like to pick our causes and our businesses to boycott and stuff. It's good that we do that, but you also have to acknowledge there's gonna be things that you support and buy into that do harmful things,
right?
And unless you're willing to go completely off the grid, there's no way you're gonna get around that,
right? Yeah, and yet we consider ourselves victims for whatever. We definitely know fuck yeah, it's so philosophically heavily. Especially the ending. At the end, you know, she. So yeah, the point of the underground layer, as you know, since we've already warned you about spoilers and you've seen the movie already, is that they believe that martyrs, and martyr, very religiously loaded word. You get Jesus Christ, the martyr figure, certain subsects of extremist Islam or martyrdom, where people take jihad. The
Even Hinduism with Sati,
oh yeah, like
the bride burning.
yeah, all sorts of religion like have taken to the extreme. Martyrdom and people like decide to harm themselves or others. Is going back to Albert Fish.
I mean, that's basically the basic the logical conclusion of religion is the whole like if the divine is and the afterlife is the reward, like why not take those steps to get there?
Right, they take steps to get there. Like yeah. It's a logical conclusion. The most populous religion in the world, the most recognizable religious figure, the religious symbol in the world is a symbol of suffering. And I'm not too sure how much France has in radical or fundamentalist Christianity. But,
I imagine they have it really bad because they're going through a really big right-wing resurgence.
Are they?
Yeah, like big time.
Yeah. And this was a recent movie, so I imagine it's probably related to that.
Yeah.
The point. So at the end of the movie, after this being, and it kind of fits with the narrative too, because at the end of the movie you're just fucking numb, and you're kind of with with the protagonist, just you've submitted to the movie as much as she's submitted to all the pain, and she's just like left her body. And the point of the experiment is that they believe that through torture and you can see the afterlife.
But basically bringing you close to death.
Right, bringing you close to death, you have, for what it is, an out-of-body experience, or, it's like, what they seem to have, like, it's kind of like the out of the near-death experience that we always hear in talk shows where someone is, on the operating table, and then, like, they float out of their body and saw them, or in some cases, like, someone saw heaven, or, whatever their religion tells them that they should see after death, pretty much.
Yeah.
And kind of like a lot of shamanistic stuff, where like you go into a trance and you go to like another world, like almost like a lot of like it kind of seemed like they're almost like suggesting astral projection in a way. Yeah, so like it's a vague spiritual component to this cult, which again gave it this really creepy vibe, because they're very organized and you didn't know what they were doing, because it seemed unclear what their goals were, or even what they expected to see.
Well, they made a point to distance themselves from a religion, though. I thought that was an interesting point.
Oh yeah, that's right. Like they weren't. Yeah.
They said don't, or whoever said that martyrdom was like the stuff of the religious or something like that.
Right. They weren't religious, but like they had this idea of the afterlife, but it wasn't religious. So like it was like taking this vague sense of spirituality. So yeah, obviously like it was interesting because like the one point the Mademoiselle gave this almost Bond villain style. I'm going to explain what we're doing and why we do it. Which is maybe priming her in a way.
Yeah, it's funny when it didn't seem that out of place to describe to her what they're doing. Cause...
Yeah, actually, when Sarah was watching it, she was saying it was a bad experiment because they're priming and there's no control group. So anyway, but they're obviously.
Well, they did it with a lot of people before. Maybe they did have control groups before.
Maybe that was... But they're priming the person involved in the experiment to see anyway, or maybe they had control groups that didn't prime. But anyway, so the final way that they, which was one of the most intense scenes of gore, like I had when this was happening, I was like, what? Oh, that's what they're doing. they skin her alive.
Mm-hmm.
They let's put her on a rack and they cut off her shirt. Like, oh, what are they doing here? Also, as speaking of cutting off the shirt, one thing that was pretty impressive in the movie is they made it as disturbing and jarring as it, and did not include rape in the movie. Except in the first they mentioned it that or the protagonist was a victim of a child sexual abuse.
No, they said she wasn't.
She wasn't?
Yeah, they made a point of saying she wasn't.
Are you sure?
I'm like 90% sure.
I'm pretty sure they. Anyway,
I watched it last night.
I watched it last night. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so the person, the woman was part of this like twisted boarding home. So anyway, so regardless, in the movie there was no sexual. It's been a key figure of exploitation.
This is interesting though. What do you think that is? Where like you can show so much horrible things like in Martyrs, but like rape would just seem over the top.
I don't think that would be it's over the. I don't think.
Or like, but like that's the thing I noticed. Like that's a problem that people have with horror movies, where like they're fine with so much violence and horrible stuff, but like, I mean, like I'm not defending rape by any means or like rape culture, but I find it weird that like in a genre that's where the point is brutality and making you uncomfortable, that like rape seems to be the one complaint.
Right.
And like I even understand like the whole like that it's gender thing, that it always happens to women, and like they probably like it could happen to men more, but like I still find it interesting that like that's still the one thing, like you can show torture, you can show flaying alive, all that, but that's the thing.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I think like at least within the exploitation subgenre, that's rape has been definitely a mainstay of it. One thing I guess it'd be the antithesis of this movie was this movie called Chaos. I think it was Chaos. It was they just took this guy. Did you see this interview? It was the guy that's being interviewed in a morgue with his shirt off.
No.
He's in this LA County morgue. I don't know how the fuck this happened. How anyone approved this, but he's in this morgue with actual dead people. And his shirt's off, and he's almost. He used to be a wrestler, so like he's giving an interview like a wrestler does. And he was talking about how he's gonna have Chaos, the sickest movie of all time. And what stood out to me and a lot of other fans is like, yeah, like it's a remake of Last House on the Left. Like not joke, it's the plot of Last House on the Left, but done again. Like what can you it's a rape revenge movie. What are you really gonna do that's gonna be that notable with rape? Like, oh yeah, you're gonna have this dramatic scene where she's stripped and she's crying. You're gonna have close-ups and her face and that and what's weird about Chaos. I know it's interjecting into a better movie. I'm talking about how bad this movie is to make Martyrs to look better, although it doesn't need the help. And what's weird is like, the people that are going to watch or know about Chaos are going to be the people that are pretty deep in the horror trenches to begin with. Like they've already seen Last House on the Left, Night Train Murders, all this stuff that's at first at the time was more original and probably more jarring. So I think the fact that I guess this kind of goes to say how high concept it is. The fact that they were able to make something so disturbing without going to was pretty impressive. Not like from a moral like it would be wrong for them to have rape in the movie, but just from an artistic stance, so like, oh wow, it's like when there's a band without a guitarist, and you're like, oh, cool, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. It's like except no one says that movies can't be good without rape. Well, I'm sure some people say that, but no, it's like the fact that they were able to do that without having that, stood out as impressive to me. And so at the end of the movie, she goes into some kind of trance. Either she's just entirely detached from her body, which as people from who suffer from PTSD definitely do. The detachment is a very common effect. or maybe seeing the afterlife. The Mademoiselle goes up to her and says, "What do you see?" And she whispers to her. We don't see it too, keeping with the theme of this vague and unknown thing, which makes people uncomfortable. Whispers, and then the Mademoiselle goes back to one of her colleagues and says, "Do you ever when you dream
can you imagine the afterlife?
Can you imagine the afterlife?" And he says, "No, right?" No, he says yes or no. Damn it, I should know this more.
He says no, he can't.
He says no, he can't. That's right. He says no, he can't. She says keep doubting, and then she shoots herself. I bring up this part. Let's get a little bit lighthearted here. It was canceled. No one's involved in it, but the producer of the Twilight movies wanted to do a remake.
Wait, the producers of the Twilight movies wanted to do this?
Yeah, it sounds like a joke, but no. And I've been talking enough. You say what they said about this.
They said they wanted to give it a glimmer of hope, and they wanted to make it so that you wouldn't want to shoot yourself at the end.
Didn't he say no? He said at the end of the movie.
Yeah, you don't have to shoot.
You don't have to shoot yourself because she commits suicide.
Which I feel like that undermines the entire point of the movie.
I think that's when you shoot yourself, is when you realize that your entire life's work, which has been torturing people, has been all for nothing. That's exactly when you shoot yourself. Not a moment before or after. Yeah. Or maybe before would be okay. But
that did not even occur to me that was what she said. That there's no afterlife.
Yeah, there's no afterlife.
And then she just realizes that.
Yeah, right.
Oh wow, that.
Yeah, right.
Dude, fucking mind blown right now.
Yeah, exactly. This is why you have conversations.
See, and the way I got it originally was, I like your version better because I felt like it was a cop-out, because when I first saw it, I thought oh, it's just something so horrible she can't handle it or whatever. She imparted this vision of hell, and so
right, that's part of it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's part of it. But
I like your version better, where it's you realize you basically created hell on earth yourself for nothing.
Right, you created hell on earth for nothing. Yeah, you realize everything that you've done is for nothing.
Oh, I like that ending a lot better.
Right. It's not even. And then that kind of is an inversion of how society at large sees martyrdom. Martyrdom is someone who dies for a great cause. And there's this idea that the ends justify the means. War heroes get this a lot. No matter what horrible things they did. A war hero gets this, and then there's this glimpse of reality into the movie. The movie presents a glimpse of reality that no, this is really just for nothing. And then there went to be an American version where they give it a glimmer of hope.
So much of the movie is about it being for nothing and just letting go and nothing matters, and to add that glimmer of hope to it that really would make the movie torture porn in the end, because it would undermine the entire concept. It would destroy the concept. You would just be watching it for the gore and the violence.
I think Annie was one. We were another of my film nerd friends was discussing this movie and the possible remake, and how thinking of other ways you just ruin the ending of the movie at the entire point where you have Sophie's Choice, and they're actually, never mind, you can have them both.
Wait, that happened?
No.
Oh.
But, you have a remake of the movie where, nothing bad happens. Or just stuff why not just make it, she wakes up and it's all a dream?
Yeah, they might as well do that.
I just can imagine some, French film snob, or nerd, or either one.
Well, French nerds are snobs.
Yeah. True point. Oh, yeah, right. Stereotype, blah, blah, blah. Reading that, the American version, real, seeing all of the ugly American stereotypes come to life in one complaint about a movie. I'm just not getting the fucking point of...
Well, I mean, even some... Well, actually, there's also the other idea of sometimes the original ending isn't the best, like Clockwork Orange. Because the original ending just has him growing up and growing out of it, and just moving on, having a family, and I thought that kind of undermined everything that happened. But, Stanley Kubrick was smart enough to just not show that last chapter, and even, even publishers, when they published the book, Yeah,
Andy Burgess, when he wrote that book, he just really hated behavioral science,
Mm-hmm.
and so like that was the whole point of the conditioning
To just undermine it.
to undermine it, and then say that if he wasn't being conditioned by society, um, like you could say like at different points in the movie, he's like first he's being conditioned by society that doesn't teach him that what he's like he's being conditioned by society to act chaotically. Then he's being conditioned by society to not, and then it's it undermines the goodness, which is kind of a religious, definitely brought up in oh, I never made that connection before. That it's brought up in a lot of religious studies for me that the idea that free will is better even if it causes suffering.
Which is interesting too, because they stressed free will, but then when they talk about the idea of like the concept of like eternal damnation as punishment, it's still not really free will at that point.
Right.
It's still you're still
reacting to punishment
under threat.
Right, you're reacting under threat.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, the whole free will God thing is fucking crazy. And yeah, when you talk about something created in a response to humanity's fear of the unknown. But yeah, Martyrs. As I said before, like not a lot of French movies. French horror is not as established as American or Italian horror. Japanese horror. Well, that's Japanese horror or Asian horror in general, but mostly Japanese. What has been done with French horror has been really impressive and very the standouts to me in French horror are going to be Eyes Without a Face. You ever seen that one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe we'll watch this one another time. Or Man Bites Dog. Both very graphic, terrifying movies. Both very high concept. I definitely see the influence of that in 120 Days of Sodom, in the new French extremity movement, and Martyrs is a definitely high point of this. I think if someone sees this and sees it as just exploitation or torture porn, then you can just assume that they're not going to get it. I would rate this movie, I would say, I'm going to say 10 out of 10. I'm going to say 10 out of 10 because I also really liked, this is a cinematic note, I liked the portrayal of hallucinations in the movie. I think the way they cut between Lucy's hallucinations and what was really happening, I think that was a very artfully cut. And the progression was really great. It started off, and the progression of the story was a wonderful, and all the twists and everything, very impressive. And just from a gorehound thing, the gore that was there was very the special effects amazingly done. The fact that they were the naked woman, the fact that they're able to put her underwater and have whatever makeup they're using or prosthetics or whatever still keep their quality top notch. Definitely top notch. So yeah, if you're just watching it for gorehound thrills, you'll still get it, but you'll also be shocked to see that you'll be philosophically crushed and be left to think about a bunch of really uncomfortable, deep thoughts.
Yeah,
your thoughts?
I was gonna say 9 out of 10 just because the message isn't that apparent. Like it would be really easy to miss it. But I don't know. I kind of like that better, so I'm bumping it back to 10 out of 10 because that message is there. It's presented in a very intelligent way,
right? And
because it's easy to miss, like it's not shoving it in your face,
right. And it's not as hand-fist. Yeah,
it's pretty well done.
Oh my, yeah.
Like I didn't imagine myself saying a movie like Martyrs would have such subtlety.
No, yeah, it's insane because it's so brutal and so out there, and yet very subtle.
It's one of those movies that like you watch it, you enjoy, but the more you talk about it, the more you realize like how well it's done.
Oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, Martyrs, new French extremity. Keep it up. We'll probably include Inside in later edition. Because when I watched this, everyone was saying you should watch Inside. So yeah, keep it up, French people. Continue that cinematic tradition. And don't be scared because if an American tries to remake your movie, they'll just run away from it. We're going to pause for a song now.
All right.
I'm not so sure what song I just played. I'm aware now, looking back in the editing, maybe I could just dub my lips over.
Just freeze your mouth and then edit you saying it over.
I mean, we're talking about old movies, so like just do it like the like a bad European dub of
put somebody else's voice over your mouth.
Oh my god! Yeah, that's the I remember with Black Sunday they had Barbara Steele playing the main role, one of the most famous horror actresses at the time, and they dubbed over her voice. So yeah, dubbing about that. Anyway, we are going to lighten it up. Actually, we know this is going to get dark again. So yeah, when I was talking to my wife about this, she's like, "Oh, you're going to talk about Martyrs for a comedy podcast?" Like, it's not a comedy podcast, like, but you're people who do comedy. You tell jokes on stage. Yeah, Josh Messer over here, and then Gigi James over there. In case you don't know who we are, you probably do if you're watching this. And who am I kidding? And so I thought we'd talk about the connection between horror and comedy. So one thing we harped on a whole bunch is how it needs to be relatable and it needs to be extreme. You need to. Dario Argento once said, in reference to I think it was Deep Red, where someone is killed by having their teeth smashed into the corner of a table. There's a table right here in case you're wondering where I'm pointing. Because we all know what it's like to bump into the corner of a table. We have all had stuff done to our teeth. We understand that. Like if someone's shot in a movie, like how you don't see people cringe as much. Mm-hmm. But in Hostel, like say in Hostel, the scene where they cut the Achilles tendons, and as Gigi pointed out, do tell me what you pointed out about the Achilles tendon scene in Hostel.
Oh, the Achilles tendon thing rang hollow for me because if you cut an Achilles tendon, it's not gonna just like
dangle. Yeah,
dangle, or just like okay, so like imagine this is the Achilles tendon. In the movie, it just kind of went up like this, but like in real life, it would just like slingshot back up into your leg,
which would be even more terrifying because there's the thought of having something slingshot inside of your leg.
But not only that, but also because like they made it look like a bone, and so you still feel like that part would hurt, but you could probably still like walk or something. Like you imagine that like if something that like feels that strong and slingshots up into you. You imagine, like, okay, that leg is done for now because you're losing, like, a bunch of support for it and, like, probably a lot of nerve endings and...
Oh, yeah. 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 Man, I like that scene. But anyway, when I recently saw that movie, or it was a repeated watch for me, and Sarah saw it for the first time, that scene, more than any other one, makes people cringe. Well, that and, this scene where they take I think it was like a wrench to someone's toes and start pulling them off, but you don't cringe as much at the ending. Again, spoilers if you haven't seen Hostel. Sorry, bad shit happens. At the end, where the woman jumps in front of a train, that doesn't make people cringe as much because they turn into a splatter. I have no idea what that would feel like, but I can imagine a tendon being cut. Like, we've all had, nerves,
we've all had a tendon cut.
We haven't had a tendon cut, but we've had, something go on with our nerves. We understand what that could feel like. So it needs to be relatable, going back to true crime, let's say, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Sleep is, kind of a terrifying thing because, it's something where we're vulnerable. And, dreams have been part of, mythology for, a very long time. But Freddy Krueger is so, especially later on, it's just...
That's actually kind of a great loophole for the movie now that I think about it. Because in general, the idea of Freddy Krueger is just a boogeyman. And a lot of times that stuff isn't as scary as, like, a serial killer. But the fact that he does all of his horrible stuff within dreams,
Mm-hmm.
we've all had those horrifying nightmares.
Right. Who hasn't had a nightmare before?
So it's one of those things where it gets away with a boogeyman still being relatably terrifying.
Right. Then it's someone coming after you with a blade. That's why. That's one of the reasons why slasher villains use blades so often, because we've all at one point slice we've sliced ourselves on something. And in a way, comedy is kind of the same way, because at least with stand-up comedy, I'd say with like traditional comedy movies too, you need to be able to relate to the premise. If there's a situation or a premise that's so out there that no one understands, the joke's gonna be wasted on them.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you need to do something interesting with that premise.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not sure if everyone's seen this, but we've seen stuff where someone just mentioned something that happens, and there's no analysis, there's no tag, there's no insight to it.
There's no wordplay.
There's no insight. There's something that's just kind of brought up, and that kind of falls flat.
Which is funny though, because there's some people that do that really well, and I don't know, how do you think that, Gabriel Iglesias, even if he's not your favorite comic,
right,
he does long form storytelling of literally things that just happened to him, and it's to pull that off, there's a degree of talent, because I don't know, what do you think it is about something like that makes that successful as opposed to someone else? Because it's funny, because you can tell those stories in conversation, and they will crack everyone up. But the second you do it on a stage, it changes for some reason, and it's really weird. Because you're saying the same thing, but the fact that you're on a stage with a microphone talking to more people instead of one, that I don't know, it just takes the piss out of it, I guess.
I think it was still recording. Anyway, definitely, performance, definitely. I guess you were that works with horror too, because if you're at home at night and you hear something fall, that's going to terrify you. But in a movie, that would people do this all the time. They use jump scares where you think it's the monster or the killer and it's something else. It reminded me, actually, there's two things that happened to me in real life.
Well, that's kind of a lot of stuff in horror movies. A lot of stuff that would be painful or scary in real life. You can't really show that in the context of a horror movie and have it work like that.
Yeah.
You can't stub your toe in a horror movie.
Right, but you can do something that relates to stubbing your toe.
With the wrench thing you were talking about.
Yeah, with the wrench. So, it's toe. Toenails. Who... Yeah, we've all... No, not all. But...
And we've all handled a wrench.
We've all handled a wrench. We've, a lot of people have had, a toenail cut too close, and that's painful as all hell. So, yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, these two things that happened to me, which I think are funny in hindsight, that seem to be out of a horror movie, but nothing happened. Okay, so it's 3 a.m. in the morning. I think I was taking out the garbage, and there's a big air conditioning unit right by our apartment. And I walked by it, and it stopped, and the fan stopping, and I guess the gears, and the metal made a little screech that sounded like a little kid laughing. So...
That's another thing that's kind of pissed me off in horror movies, the overuse of little kids. Children are not scary.
Yeah, the creepy little kid thing. It works sometimes. Well, yeah, that's one of those. Relatable comedy also. Something that works. Something works for somebody, and then it's done all the time for someone else. The little girls in The Shining. Terrifying. Little kid. A lot of little kids in Japanese movies can be pretty scary, but then especially in the American remakes of it.
That part might kind of relate to. I mean, if you've been around any kid long enough, kids they can say terrifying things, but it's not them trying to be scary or indicative of any actual scary stuff. It's kids not knowing how to express something, and it's scary on accident.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The other story that happened to me. I was in the restroom at my school, and this guy starts humming a song, I'm like, is this what you do before you kill people? Do you hum a song while you're carrying an axe? This is some American Psycho shit. Are you seeing it hit to be square right now? Are you moonwalking outside of the bathroom door? And the fact that we're joking about this, also writes that as this is your idea, so I'll let you say it. But
What?
the extremes either way.
Oh yeah, so like with horror and comedy, when both get blown out to their extremes, they go back on each other. So like if you have a horror movie that just gets too gory, too insane, too like overblown violent, like it gets so unbelievable. Like the fact that somebody thought of this and is executing, like it's like you have to laugh. It's just funny and ridiculous. Whereas with comedy, you take these concepts and you keep pushing them and pushing them and pushing them, and a lot of times you end up in some really dark places. Yeah, like Pink Flamingos. Like it's a comedy, but they keep pushing it to these extremes where, like, by the end, it's really dark. Like they're murdering people, and like, like there's incest and all this stuff. It's like the movie, like you're laughing, but at the same time, like, holy shit, this is terrifying.
Yeah.
And then also like the relationship between like comedians and how they view audiences and how they view what they do. Like like I'm killing, I'm dying up there, like all this stuff. Like you're taking what's supposed to be just like a fun thing and you're relating it like to this life and death thing. Yeah. Which, I mean, we aren't really, but like there's that whole level of anxiety about performing and like just how uneasy you get with social anxiety, and like when you're going in front of a room, like it's interesting because like a lot of people who do comedy are people who have a lot of social anxiety.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, like, I don't know about you, but for me, like, I always hated having to do a presentation in front of the class. Like, I had horrible stage fright. But for some reason, like, if I'm going up there, like, to talk about, like, racism in my school, then I'm like, oh, let me get up here and talk in this mic.
Yeah, like, definitely stage anxiety was something. Oh, the funny thing about stand-up comedy is that it's one of the only things that a nervous tick will make you seem more confident. Like definitely, I remember you do too. When I was doing my early, not that. There was one time the it's 70's gone. One time at Flappers Claremont, I'm not sure who made this call. It must have been the owner. That there was this comic who was in a wheelchair, and to have equal access and not have it be awkward, they would have for one night they had the microphone in front of the stage on the floor, so like it was kind of like bent in a way. It was bent in a way that'd be easily accessible to him, so it wouldn't be as awkward and otherizing. For the comic. And I haven't seen him in a while. I wonder. I hope he's doing stuff.
Well, that was the second time I'd seen him. The first time he was there, they just
he
sat in front of the stage and they positioned it down. I liked that idea.
Yeah, that worked too. But I was putting my head down, partly to think of what's happening, and partly afraid. It is, but apparently, it looked like I was just slamming a microphone into my head. And
which is funny because I take my name after G.G. Allen.
Right.
You're the one acting like him.
Did you know that G.G. Allen said that he doesn't know what a headache is? No, like in the book I Was a Murder Junkie, well then again he made up a lot of stuff, so who knows what the fuck he was saying.
Yeah, that's true.
He was like, yeah, people say I have a headache, I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm talking about abnormal behavior with brain lesions. Maybe that's what happened. He has some like shit in his fucking head. No, I would get nervous anxiety, which definitely related to horror, social anxieties, and I just want to tie everything together and acknowledge that I'm tying it together. And I would laugh, and it sounded like I was just laughing at how hysterical I was being, but really I was just laughing because I was nervous. I didn't know what I was doing up there.
Also, another thing with horror and comedy is you use both of them to explore concepts that make you uncomfortable.
Right.
Or like talk about things. So like with horror, you use it to deal with like evils in the world, and you sort of you get a protagonist, usually representing yourself or like someone like that, and then you have them up against like the evils in the world or things that make you uncomfortable. Whereas in comedy, you use humor to disarm the things that make you uncomfortable.
Right. Or like just in a sense that you could say that comedy is depending on the comic. In some cases, it's looking for meaning, and again, like people in a way don't like not knowing things, or if they want to not know things, they have a certain way of looking at it. They look at it a certain way. In a way, like you can kind of see certain ways of stand-up comedy as a search for truth, search for some truth or reflection on odd things that we don't quite understand. And yeah, so I definitely see like that's also in horror, in that they both are something extreme, something weird that we're trying to relate to. Kind of going back to the first point. And as John Landis said, neither are taken seriously critically. But they both have the hardest job because you have to have a very physical reaction to it. Like if you watch a horror movie and at no point you're tense, it hasn't done its job. And if you see comedy and you haven't laughed, it hasn't done its job. I guess like dramas and action movies have that to a certain point too, but not as much.
They also both have like that pedestrian side too, where like both can be used to explore these awesome concepts while being entertaining, while having aesthetics and stylistic choices and like all this great stuff.
Well, that's pretty much it. But
But then like there's also the school of comedy where it's like make me laugh.
Yeah, that make me laugh.
And then like with horror,
oh totally.
Like I have friends that pisses me off so much. Like I've had friends that would tell me like Clockwork Orange wasn't scary because their definition of a scary movie is something that makes them jump.
Right.
Like nothing pisses me off more than like that being someone's criteria for a horror movie.
Right. Or and yeah, like you can say like certain acts are cheesier than others. Like even with a single franchise, you can see the spectrum of how serious or cheesy something is. Like the Friday the 13th movie. First two, very gritty, serious movies. Third has a certain degree, like you also see that this goes with time with the 80s where, humor, comedy slashers got bigger than like, straight up horror movies. First one, first movie, very tense, very terrifying movie. Second, also very, very tense, very terrifying. Third, kind of walked the line. Fourth, also walking the line. And then
Texas Chainsaw Massacre too.
Oh, for it. Well, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, yeah.
I still think the second one is great too.
Oh no, totally. It's
but
great.
It's
also, fine. It shouldn't be good. That's the funny thing about the second one is, it shouldn't be good. It's it's definitely a horror comedy. But it's a horror comedy sequel made, I think, over a decade since the last. Yeah, it was after a decade of silence, the buzz is back. Different actors, adding new characters.
That's another thing. A horror comedy is really hard to do well.
Oh yeah.
Because it's one of those things like
you have to balance it.
With most comedies, and I don't like to feel like the movie's winking at me. And that's especially hard with a horror comedy.
Oh yeah, to have like, have you ever seen American Werewolf in London?
No.
Oh, we have to watch it. It's like I think that did the best. But I think it may have done a better job in combining the two than Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. But yeah, no, with Friday the 13th, as it went on, it became a joke, and then I think by the seventh one, oh fuck, I can't even. It hurts to even think about this or say it. For whatever reason, they bring a store brand Carrie into it. There's a teenage girl that has psychic powers. And then Jason, at this point, is just a zombie. Like, they stopped even bothering explaining him as,
like in Scream 3, they brought in Jay and Silent Bob.
They did.
Yeah.
Fuck. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was... Well, Scream... Scream...
Well, Scream was supposed to be a parody from the start, wasn't it?
It was, in a way, it was a kind of a it was kind of like a meta parody in itself, but at the same time, yeah.
It tried to do what Cabin in the Woods would do much better years later.
Much better years later.
Yeah.
So yeah. And what else about horror and comedy? Like, oh yeah, that's right. We were talking about Martyrs and how it was just raw brutality from the start. A lot of other horror movies have a sense, that have a beginning of normality, or they have one scene that's intense and then it's followed by some normality and calm, and then goes back to the intensity. It's definitely set up punchline.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, we've all, both of us, when writing, we've struggled with, like, okay, how, you don't want to have so much setup that you're wasting time getting to the punchline.
The payoff's not worth it.
Right, but you also don't want it that, you don't want this, you don't have too little of a setup where the punchline doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, that's enough, nasal gazing about that.
Nasal
Sure.
gazing?
Nasal. Did I
I
say
said
nasal?
nasal gazing. That's what I'm going to say from now on instead of navel gazing.
Anyway.
Anyway, yeah. Now we actually have to go do a comedy set.
Speaking of... Well, not right now. But it will in a little bit. We have to actually go do an open mic at a coffee gallery. And people drink caffeine, which will make them anxious. And be terrified. And want to piss or shit themselves. Like a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have a sign-off quite yet. So hold our place for a sign-off that we'll pick up later. I'm Josh Messer.
GG James.